How you going, guys? Dean from the Adeptus Victorium, and I'm here to review the TO's top 5 lists for our upcoming event, the AVC Doubles. Alright, before we get into the list, I just want to do a quick recap on what the AVC Doubles is, because we take a unique twist on the standard doubles format that is worth explaining before we go into the list reviews, because it impacts what people would bring in their lists. So a standard doubles event, 2 players sign up together and each one brings half of the army. So we're doing 1,500 points. So a standard doubles event would be both players bring 750 points each, and they sign up together and play all games together as a team. Whereas what we're trying out for the AVC Doubles, which as far as I know has never been done before, is players are signing up as an individual with a 750 point list, and then on the day they'll be assigned a teammate for the first round and 2 opponents for the first round, and then after that we will be pairing a modified Swiss version where in round 2 whoever placed the highest in round 1 will be paired with whoever placed lowest as a teammate. And then whoever placed second highest will be paired with whoever placed second lowest as a teammate. So basically you'll get a new teammate every round, and basically the more points you generate in your round, the higher score you get, the lower score your teammate will get. So it sort of balances it out and prevents there from ever being a team of 2 like monsters. You know, you'll always have one of the newer players or one of the fresher faces to the competitive scene paired up with one of the competitive greats in the Melbourne community. And it's going to be, the idea behind that is that it prevents any power teams. It also tests your ability to adapt, because the other half of your list, your teammates' list, will change from round to round. So you can't design your list knowing what your teammate has and trying to create synergies there. It'll test your ability to write a 750 point self-contained list and then be flexible and adapt on the day, which has, after looking at the lists, I can see people have taken that into consideration. There's a few really interesting concepts that we'll go through. Some people have taken a really interesting direction. And then there's a few people whose lists just are very well rounded and I think are going to perform really, really well on the day, because I feel like they will be able to adapt and plug holes in their teammates' lists, regardless of what those holes are. Alright, so before I get into the first list, I just want to talk a little bit about how excited I am for this event, simply because of the spread of factions that are being represented on the day. If you look at the chart to my right, you'll see that there's a really good even spread of factions. Most are taken once. There's only, 5 factions that are taken twice, and only 3 factions are taken 3 times. So I'm really fucking stoked with that. I think that's a really good spread. It's not like some events where you rock up and there's just, you know, a whole ton of orc lists or a whole ton of demons lists, you know. There's a really good spread. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And especially when you combine that with the pairings mechanic, where you get a new teammate at the start of every round, I think that's going to make for some really interesting combinations. So even though some of the lists themselves might not look that powerful, I think when you pair them up with things like, for example, there's a Dark Eldar list that has access to Agents of Vect. When you pair that with, say, a Chaos Demons list, and they're on the same seat, like on the same side, now all of a sudden those demons have essentially got access to Agents of Vect. So we're going to see some really interesting combinations, and I think this is going to be really interesting to see the way that some of these lists mesh together. But yeah, so without further ado, I'll jump straight into the lists. Alright, so the first on our list of top 5 lists is Chris McKenna, and he's bringing a Death Watch battalion. Now it's worth noting that in this event, I've said that each player will get the 3 command points for being Battleforged, plus whatever they bring, and lists are restricted to a single detachment. So the people bringing a battalion are going to start the game with 8 CP, and if both people on the team bring a battalion, that team will essentially have 16 CP. But there's standard doubles restrictions, like you can't use your teammates' command points, you can't use stratagems on teammate units, that sort of stuff. So if you happen to get, the same faction as your teammate, your abilities and auras and all that sort of stuff doesn't cross over. So Chris McKenna has been very smart, and he started with a battalion, which means he's going to have 8 CP, and I know Deathwatch have a whole ton of really awesome stratagems. So I think that's going to be a really good kickoff point and a really good start to his list. Alright, so for his first HQ, he's got a Librarian with a jump pack, who has a Combi Melter and a Force Staff. And then for his second HQ, he has a Watch Captain with a Thunderhammer and a jump pack, and the Beacon Angelus. And for his 3 troops choices, he has 3 identical Deathwatch veteran squads. Each has a Black Shield with a Power Maul and Stormbolter, a Terminator with a Power Fist and a Stormbolter, a Vanguard veteran with a Storm Shield and a Bolt Pistol, 3 veterans all with Storm Bolters and Storm Shield, and a Watch Sergeant with a Power Axe and a Storm Shield. So these units are pretty tough. They've got some pretty good combat with the various power weapons that he's put in the squads, but they're also really durable with the Storm Shields that are in the squads and the Terminator. And then they've also got good range damage output with all of those Storm Bolters and the special issue ammunition that they have access to. So these are going to be real Swiss Army knives. The only thing that I probably would have suggested is maybe putting in a bike, because that gains access to a teleport homer. So without that, these units are going to be relatively slow. He will be using the Beacon Angelus to teleport one of them up, most likely turn 1 or 2, which will give him in a pretty good position. But a really fast army should be able to outmaneuver this, so it's going to be interesting. The thing I like about this is it brings tons of CP. Deathwatch are very flexible, and they're able to sort of plug any kind of hole that they come across, so I think they'll mesh really well. If I got paired and this guy was my teammate, I'd be stoked, because I know that he's going to have a really tough to kill list. He's going to be able to project damage. He's going to be able to hold objectives for the team while I go out and do my killing, or that sort of stuff. I think it's just a really well-rounded and really cool list. So I look forward to seeing how Chris goes on the day. Alright, so the next list I want to talk about is an example of people taking a really creative spin on this doubles format. Johnny Seymour has brought a Cabal of the Black Heart Air Wing detachment with 5 Dark Eldar flyers. I'll go through them in a second, but the reason that I think this is a really interesting take is because he sent me a message saying, will I get boots on the ground if I have no ground models, if my teammate does? And I'm like, no, as long as your teammate's got models on the ground, your team have models on the ground, therefore you don't suffer the boots on the ground auto lose penalty. So immediately he's submitted a list with 5 flyers. And what he's done, which is a bit of a dick move, but funny, and I like it, it's creative, is by taking all of these flyers, their opponents know that all they need to do to win the game is kill everything that his teammate has. Because if they kill everything his teammate have, then there's no models on the ground, and because all that's left is flyers, they auto lose. So what Johnny's done in a real sneaky way, and I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but what he's done is he's forced his opponents to focus all of their energy on his teammate instead of him. Which means every game, Johnny's just going to be flying around with these flyers, doing whatever he wants, and he should remain relatively unchecked. Which I think is really funny, and it's such a Johnny thing to do. As for which flyers, he's got 3 Razor Wing jet fighters. Each one has a splinter cannon and 2 disintegrator cannons, so lots of dizzies there. And then he has 2 Void Raven bombers with Void Lancers and Void Raven missiles. So lots of DACA, lots of punishment. He can fly over things and drop bombs on them, which is a really good way of bombing things that are in combat, because it doesn't matter if there's friendly models within range. So it'll be really hard to pin on his teammate if they try and do that to stop Johnny from shooting them. It's a really interesting list. As much as I wouldn't like being teamed up with it simply because I know that means everyone's going to be coming at me instead of the flyers, I do like what this list brings, and I think the raw damage output from these units will be really good. The deficit is with the Airwing detachment only giving 1 CP. Johnny's only going to start the game with 4, so he can only vect once. and then that's all of his CP gone on a single strat. So I'm not sure whether he'll do that or not, or whether he'll save them for other stratagems. But yeah, interesting take. I like your list, Johnny. I look forward to seeing what you can do with it. All right, next we have Mike Rainbow. And it was really interesting. I was a little worried that, because we've got quite a few Knight players in our area, and I was a little worried that they wouldn't attend the event because it's only 750 points and you're limited to a single detachment, which makes Knights quite difficult. But Mike's been persistent and he's decided, you know what, he's going to run Knights anyway. So his list is a House Morden Questoris Imperialis list. That's a tongue twister and a half. He's got 2 Armiger Helverins and a Knight Errant. So his Errant has got the Reaper Chainsword and a Thermal Cannon. And I think what he's basically going to do, depending on what his teammate has, he's just going to run that Errant up the center of the table, supporting fire with the Helverins, and put Sanctuary on that to get it the invulnerable save in combat as well as shooting, and rotate his Ion Shields for a 4-up. And that's going to be his sort of game plan. He's going to sort of use the big one as a fire magnet while the little ones just shoot everything. It's going to be a really interesting list. I think it's going to do quite well. And it's something that most people hate versing Knights. So when your teammate is bringing Knights, it's like the reverse. You'd be like, oh yes, awesome, Knights. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that one goes. All right, next up we have Tristan Bone, who's bringing an Orc list. Now I've seen some of Tristan's Orc models and they are absolutely beautifully painted, so I hope the rest of his army matches that standard, because I haven't seen him run Orcs at an event. I've just seen models here and there, so really keen to see those. But as for his list, he's got a Warboss with a Power Claw. He's got the Dakili Claw relic. Fuck, I feel stupid saying Orc stuff. Custom Shooter, Attack Squid, and he is Evil Sons as his fucking clan culture. He's also got a Weird Boy, who's got a Weird Boy staff. I believe that's standard loadout for Orc Weird Boys. For his troops, he's got 3 units of Grots. So he's running a battalion, 2 HQs, 3 troops, which again, like I said with the first list, Chris McKenna's, is that he's going to have plenty of CP to play with. And Orc have a lot of really cool stratagems, so that's going to be a really interesting games to watch to see how he uses those CP. But the bulk of the list is 2 units of Mega Knobs, 1 unit of 10 and 1 unit of 4. So I believe the game plan here is he's just going to mob those 2 units up, to jump them with his Weird Boy, and then do a whole bunch of damage with that one like massive punchy unit. So things like Knights, that's just going to strip them down and take them out. So being paired up with Tristan Bone's Orc list is going to feel good for your team, for his teammate, because he's going to be able to just go, what's the big scary thing? Let me have it. It does leave itself somewhat vulnerable in the way that, like, once he jumps out, if he jumps out from and now he's in front of his Grots, he's not going to be able to use Grot shields and things like that. But I think this list is really good in the way that if his opponents go first, he's got all of those Grots in front of him, so he can Grot shields up and protect those Mega Knobs. And then when it's his turn to go, whether this be first or second, he can then jump out and project a whole ton of damage. So should be a really interesting dynamic and a really interesting list. I look forward to seeing his games. All right, and last but most certainly not least, we have Marcus Hall, and this is probably my favorite list of all of those submitted, simply because it just speaks true to me, and it's one of the most fun things to play. And it's one of those things you can't really play it at 2,000 points because it has too many weaknesses, but at 750, when you don't know what half your list is going to be, because you don't know what your teammate's bringing, I think this list is going to function really, really well. And so it's a World Eaters Chaos Space Marines battalion. It's got an Exalted Champion and Khan the Betrayer, 3 units of 5 Berserkers, and 3 Rhinos. And I just think this is going to be an absolute blender of a list. So you can put the characters in, either both of them in one Rhino with a squad, or you can put one in each Rhino, depending on how worried he is about that Rhino getting popped. And then basically, first turn he moves up, advances, pops smoke, so he's -1 to hit. You blow up the Rhinos, maybe, if not, whatever. Because turn 2, he's going to jump out and assault you with all those Berserkers. Khan's going to be giving him reroll 1s to hit. And the Exalted Champion gives him +1, reroll wounds, sorry, So he's going to be re-rolling lots of stuff with a fuck ton of attacks. Again, he's bringing a battalion, which means he's going to have plenty of CP to play with. And I've seen a unit of 8 Khorne Berserkers drop a knight in 1 turn. So, and this has got 3 of those units. So even if he charges it all forward and you blow up 2 of those rhinos and kill most of the Berserkers, he's still going to punch you really hard with that last unit that gets through. And what I like about this is it's like the reverse of Johnny's list. Johnny's list with the flyers, where it forces you to attack your his teammate instead of him. This is the reverse. This is a really champion list. I would love to get paired with it as a teammate, because he's going to go forward and threaten everything turn 1, and his opponent, the opponent's going to have to target him. He's willingly taking all of the damage, while his teammate is going to be able to just sit back and feel relatively safe, because he's presenting such a powerful threat turn 1. So that's going to be really interesting. I think Marcus is probably going to die first out of everyone. Like he'll die. But if that means that his team wins the game, then that counts as him getting a win. So he might actually suicide his way into a first place, which could be really interesting. And the other thing is that rhinos aren't that easy to kill, especially once they pop their smoke launchers. They actually take quite a bit of dakka to put them down. And if his opponent doesn't put them down, he can disembark the berserkers, and then those empty rhinos can either charge in and absorb Overwatch, or they can fall back and hold objectives. And the best thing, I've played a similar list to this quite a bit. The best thing is once you've done that, once you've dropped the berserkers out, nobody's shooting those rhinos ever again. Those rhinos just go park on an objective, and everybody's so busy dealing with these berserkers that are in the way. And then when they eventually clear those berserkers, now they're going to be busy dealing with whatever Marcus's teammate brings. Those rhinos are just going to sit there and probably score more victory points than anything. So, really cool list, really fun. I think he's going to have a ton of fun, and I think his teammates are going to be stoked that he brought such a list. Unlike Johnny, where his teammates are going to be like, fuck you. So, really cool, really thematic, and I think it's going to hit like a brick as well. So, yeah, that's my top 5. All of the lists will be posted up on Down Under Pairings over the next couple of days. I just wanted to share my top 5 with you guys first. And yeah, I will be posting throughout the day. It's this Saturday coming up, Easter Saturday. So I'll be posting throughout the day, keeping you guys updated with what's happening. And yeah, I look forward to seeing those attending on the weekend. And for the rest of you, I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.